Marvel Cosmic Invasion landed in my inbox with a very simple promise. What if Tribute Games made a full Marvel brawler? And honestly, that pitch alone, it had me sold. You know, this is the team that already nailed the modern beat-em-up with TMNT Shredder's Revenge, and now they're teaming up with Marvel to take that same energy across an entire galaxy. I mean, yeah, count me in. Now for this review today, I played both the Switch 1 build and Switch 2, so we're going to be talking about both. But honestly, this thing makes a very strong first impression. Gorgeous pixel art, chunky combat, big personality, and a roster of 15 heroes that honestly just reads like a greatest hits mixtape. So let's break it down. How does Marvel Cosmic Invasion actually play? Is the performance stable? And ultimately, is this the brawler Marvel fans deserve? Let's find out. Just quickly then, if you are new here, I cover everything Switch and Switch 2. Reviews, performance breakdowns, lists, deals, all that good stuff. So consider subscribing if that's your thing. So the setup is classic Marvel chaos. Annihilus decides the entire galaxy needs wiping out, and suddenly, every corner of the universe is collapsing. It is the kind of comic book escalation that goes from zero to we're doomed in about 5 seconds. And that's really all the game needed. You'll be jumping between heroes constantly though. Spider-Man cracking jokes, Wolverine grumbling his way through a fight, Nova dealing with intergalactic fallout, and the game, it keeps things moving constantly with cutscenes between every single mission. It's simple, I won't question that, but it adds a nice bit of flavour to what is, at its heart, a very pure beat-em-up. And that beat-em-up core, it's exactly what you'd expect from Tribute Games. You've got your light attacks, heavies, charged hits, dodges, parries, aerials, basically all the staples. But the real joy comes from how different each of these heroes feels. You know, some characters glide or fly around the screen, others they rely on brute force, and a few have really weird character-specific tools that genuinely change your approach. The move list in the pause menu, it actually matters here because it's a lot to learn. And I will say I liked most of the roster, though I will be honest, not all, such as Rocket. I didn't gel with them, but that's also fine. With 15 options, you're not meant to love all of them, you just find your favorites. And that brings me to the tag team system. This is the game's big trick, and it works far better than I expected. You bring 2 heroes into every mission, and you swap between them instantly, or you can even call the unused hero in just for a split-second assist. It gives the combat this rhythm, where you'll always be thinking one step ahead. You know, I'll open with Cap, swap to Nova for the launcher, then call Cap back in for the shield finisher. It's fast, it's clean, and it adds just enough depth to keep encounters interesting. Now I played the whole game solo, but you can take this up to 4 players co-op online or locally, and yeah, when you factor in tag partners as well, that means 8 heroes on screen and things, yeah, they're gonna get wild. And the campaign itself, supporting these heroes, well, for the genre first of all, it's actually a little on the longer side, 16 stages including a prologue, and with a few deaths sprinkled in. My first run took in the region of 2 hours. However, the level design. Now look, new enemies first of all, they pop up at a decent pace. But even then, the loop settles into something a bit too familiar. You start to notice how much the game is really leaning on its 15 character roster to carry the experience, while in the background, the level design stays pretty straightforward. Not bad, just kind of basic, and after a while, you do kind of find yourself wishing they'd shake it up a bit, you know, I don't know, a vehicle section, an environmental twist, just something to break the rhythm. And the difficulty in the campaign doesn't help either. This is generally basically too easy, and when it does spike, it's not in a satisfying way. Bosses, for example, are the highlight of the game, but the balancing here is just all over the place. I had 2 early fights absolutely delete me, but then later, I was mindlessly button mashing bosses down in seconds. It's not a huge issue, but it does feel like the tuning just wobbles a little from mission to mission. This campaign mode, however, does add a dash of replayability at least, and that is in a few ways. First, you can mix and match heroes on every stage, but then there's also optional challenges. So think things like landing kills with Cap's shield or launching enemies with Spider-Man's web strike. They're smart nudges to keep you experimenting and, again, add a bit of replayability. The real big annoyance, though, In campaign mode, if you die at any point, so for example on a boss encounter, you've actually kicked right back to the start of the stage. And in a game this punchy and this quickfire, that restart loop, when you do find yourself a little stuck, it gets old fast. Arcade mode then is more where the game suits my taste. It's the more traditional route. You pick your two heroes and you try and beat the whole thing in one run. Now there are here difficulty options. There's modifiers, there's a free play mode with no game overs. There's a bunch of unlockables, art, music, character upgrades, even in-game achievements. It's clear they wanted to keep genre fans busy. And thankfully, again, gonna go back to it, difficulty options, they come into play. If you crank them up here, you're gonna find something far more aggressive, far closer to what I think beat-em-up fans are typically looking for. It doesn't completely mask the repetition or fix the level design issues, but it definitely gives the game more bite. Performance on both systems then is solid. In my time with the game, I only noticed a few smaller hiccups across the entire campaign. On Switch 2, I feel it is basically flawless. Smooth, responsive, nothing that ever disrupted the flow. On Switch 1, much the same. 60 FPS target holding strong. However, you will see the very occasional minor wobble when a huge number of enemies pile onto the screen. That is a Switch 1 version on a Switch 1 console. But we are talking, honestly, momentary drops to 58 or 59 frames. And while we are talking about both the Switch 1 and Switch 2 versions here, just know there's no upgrade path with this game, paid or free, so you've got to choose the version you want. Basically, Switch 2 build will not work on a Switch 1. Switch 1, of course, will work on a Switch 2, but just know that going in. Visually then, the game just nails it. The sprites are big, chunky, full of character. It's the kind of expressive pixel art that it immediately takes you back to the 90s, but it still now feels sharp and modern. You know, every hero here has a ton of personality baked into those animations. From the way Spidey darts around the screen to the heavier, weightier swings of Wolverine or Cap. And the levels, all 16 of them, actually take you somewhere new each time. 1 minute you're in New York, the next you're deep in the negative zone. And the bosses especially come with some really impressive screen-filling attacks. It's the kind of visual flair you want from a beat-em-up like this, and Tribute clearly know the blueprint they're working from. Now granted, again, it didn't stop it from feeling over-familiar, as I said, but it's still, yeah, nice to see. The cutscenes as well, they fit the same vibe. They're simple, mostly character portraits, light animation, a bit of movement here and there, but they feel right for the style of the game it is chasing. The only real disappointment visually, and it's a surprisingly noticeable one, it's the animated intro. It's clearly meant to be this big moment, a hype-building opening sequence, but the compression on it, Switch 1 and Switch 2, it is rough. The pixelation is aggressive in what is a video file that appears to have been crushed to death, or at least way more than any sort of intentional retro look. And I guess because that's the very first thing you see, it does take a little shine off the presentation. Again though, look, once you're in the game, everything looks fantastic, but couldn't help but notice that the first time or two that actually booted it up. Audio's in a good place too. Every hero, every cutscene, fully voice acted. Bosses bark out lines mid-fight. It all adds to that energy. The soundtrack then keeps things moving as well. Really impressive stuff, with each stage getting its own theme that really does reinforce the action without ever, I guess, fighting for its attention. It is, however, really upbeat, really catchy, and it really works nicely with all of the chunky attack sound effects. So overall, Marvel Cosmic Invasion is a fun time. It's confident, it's a character-packed brawler. It wears its love for the Marvel universe on its sleeve. The roster, it's great. The tag team systems, they add genuine depth, and the whole thing really bursts with personality from start to finish. It does, however, fall short of greatness. 16 stages, it's generous, but the level design stays simple throughout, and after a while you do start to feel how much the game just leans on its 15 heroes to keep things fresh, rather than actually shaking up the formula itself. You know, a vehicle section, an environmental twist, just something to break that rhythm, it would have gone a long way. The difficulty curve as well, jumping around, and the campaign's no continuous structure adds a layer of repetition the game just doesn't need. Now, none of these issues ever become deal breakers, but they are noticeable. Even so, none of that stopped me enjoying myself, and none of it really undermines what Tribute does best. You know, the feel of the hits, the charm of the animations, the sheer energy behind it all. Yeah, all here. And there's also no doubt this is still one of the strongest uses of the Marvel license we've had in years. But does it hit the heights of Shredder's Revenge? Not quite. So if you're into beat 'em ups or you just want a comic book brawler with heart, this is a decent pickup. You know, for me, Marvel Cosmic Invasion lands at a very solid, a good 7 out of 10. It's fun, it's stylish, it's full of charm, but still doesn't quite hit its full potential. And that's Marvel Cosmic Invasion. Will you be checking it out? Let me know in the comments. And if you did enjoy this one, do me a favor, subscribe. I have Switch and Switch 2 content daily, and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers all.